schedule today. So thank you so much for joining us. I am super excited to be here with you today. Excited to be here with Sam. I'm Bo. I work at Tiimo. I'm the inclusion and belonging lead. If you join any body doubling sessions, you've probably heard about me or seen my face. So yes, really happy to be here. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Make sure you have water and a snack on hand. Always important, especially if you're somewhere that is getting roasted right now. We do not want you dehydrated during the session. Please also make good use of the Q&A function throughout. I'm also going to be monitoring the chat, but the best way to make sure that your question gets answered by Sam is to just slap it into the Q&A, and then she's going to answer all of your questions towards the end. And let me see, I'm going to be moderating that Q&A so that Sam can focus on answering all your questions. You can ask as many as you want. Last time the record was 40, so let's see how many questions y'all ask. But speaking of Sam, I'm so excited to introduce her. She is a career fulfillment coach who helps people feel good at work. Sam has a background in the corporate world, now works in the hospitality and coaching space. She faced burnout and depression, which led her to prioritize self-care and setting boundaries, which we love. And then over years, she's learned how to work with and through her seasonal depression, ADHD, PMDD, and through self-coaching, found a path towards career fulfillment, which is what we all want for you as well. And yeah, she combines her personal experiences and professional wisdom to guide her coaches through workplace challenges. So I'll pass it on to Sam now and stick around till the end for a little code for Tiimo, but take it away, Sam. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Really excited to get started. So, like Bo said, my name is Sam, and today we're going to be talking about creating an empowering mindset against imposter syndrome and rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So, how we navigate those, especially when it comes to having ADHD. So, for all my presentations, anytime I present, I have two rules. One, be a decent human. Be kind before you say a comment or say something or ask a question. Just think twice. Is this, kind? And then have fun. I want you to have fun with this. We're going to do a quiz. We're going to do an activity in this. So have fun with this. I want you to, enjoy this time that we have together. So what we're going to be talking about, I'm going to start off with a little introduction. We're going to jump into a little questionnaire game, and then I'm going to go over imposter syndrome and what rejection sensitivity dysphoria even is. Talk a little bit about the 9 inner critics. I don't know if all of you had saw this, but in the email we sent out a quiz you could have taken to figure out which of the 9 inner critics is the loudest for you. If not, you can take that quiz after, but we're going to go over those 9 inner critics, and you should be able to tell which one is your loudest. If not, all of them might be the loudest if you think after reviewing all this. And then we're going to do an inner critic activity. So for that, you'll need a pen and paper. So if you don't already have that, I'll give you some time right before that activity to go grab one. And then we'll open up for Q&A like Bo said. So like Bo mentioned, I was in the corporate world. So old me, I was climbing that corporate ladder. I was at a company for only 4 years, and I made my way up that corporate ladder as fast as I could. I like to show this graphic to a lot of my clients that, I'll be happy when I get to the finish line, but I was on a hamster wheel. There was no finish line. I completely got stuck. It was dark. I was overwhelmed. I slowly started to see my performance impact from it. I was at the bottom. I was 1% towards my goal at the end of the year, or end of the quarter for that quarter. But it was really tough, and I was crying all the time. I was really overwhelmed, and my inner critic voices were on full blast. They were telling me I'm not good enough. My title's not good enough. I need to be promoted. I need to work harder. I need to say yes to more projects. And it really led to this really dark, overwhelming space. Thankfully, I reached out to a coach that I had seen on my LinkedIn feed all the time, posting about, inner critics and imposter syndrome. And I reached out to her and I was like, listen, I don't know if your coaching is going to help me or not, but this is something that I need. And through her coaching, I was able to understand those inner critic voices in my head, which ones were the loudest for me, which ones were the ones that were telling me all these limiting beliefs, which ones were the ones that were kind of giving me this message of how I needed to act versus how I really wanted to act. I was following those shoulds like I should be working towards that next promotion. I should say yes to every project that my manager's asking me to, or I'm not going to get promoted, or I'm not going to be good enough. And then through coaching, I was really able to start questioning those enoughs and shoulds. And now, like Bo said, I'm in hospitality, which is totally different. I work at this lovely beach hotel part-time because I also get to coach clients part-time. So I get to work on the beach and coach clients. I am now a certified yoga teacher. I love helping women and men find careers that make them happy through understanding those inner critics, those limiting beliefs that are in their head that are keep getting them stuck. So really excited to be here today to help all of you kind of get a little bit more clarity on that. So we're going to be playing a little game. Bo's going to launch a poll for these questions. All the questions are going to show up at once so you can answer them, but we're going to go one by one on the slides through these. So feel free to answer all of them, but we're going to go through all of these one by one, and feel free to also put in the chat as well, yes, if this applies to you. So question 1. Just move the poll out of the way for myself. Have you ever felt like you don't deserve your accomplishments or successes? This is one that I personally know I felt every time I got promoted. I felt like I didn't deserve it. I needed to work harder. I needed to, get to that next stage, even though I was like, cool, I got here. Now what? What's next? Question 2. Have you ever hesitated to pursue new opportunities due to a fear of not being good enough or out of fear of rejection? When I was in my really strong burnout phase, I would always hesitate to ask for help or ask for, a position that I wanted to go for because I thought, I'm not good enough for that. I need to do more to be qualified for that, even though I was already potentially probably even overqualified for those. And there was a lot of fear out of rejection. What if they say no? What if they tell me that I'm not able to do this or I'm not qualified? Question 3. Do you always expect rejection? For example, if a boss wants to talk to you, assume you'll be fired. And I know in today's, landscape, there's a lot of people that have been laid off. So, when a boss says, hey, can we have a quick chat? If you've been laid off, like myself, actually, last September, I was laid off in a similar way like this, it can be really anxious and it can really get your nervous system shaken up when someone asks you that if you have, ADHD and suffer from RSD. Question 4. Do you often question whether you're qualified for a particular role or position despite evidence of your skills and experience? This one's a really good one. If you, go into, your annual business reviews with your managers and you just think like, I'm not good enough. I haven't done enough, even though, you're that person that says yes to every project and you go 110% and you're burning yourself out. You're working on vacations, you're that person that's giving 100%. But even though you're going into those reviews thinking that like, I'm going to get bad feedback. Question 5. Does criticism ruin your day and lead to an internal spiral? This is one I still struggle with a lot whenever I get feedback, particularly negative feedback. It usually does stick in my head that like, oh my God, why did I do that? And then I beat myself up. But a lot of this inner critic stuff that we're going to be going over definitely helps with that. So what's your score? And Bo had launched the results. So as you can see, that first one, we got, yep, all the time. We got 41%, sometimes, but not all the time, 54%. That's 6%. No, I feel like I deserve them. Let's go. I love that. That fear. No, I usually go without hesitation, being 0%. 0% again for no. We have 1% when you feel like you're qualified and confident in your abilities. And then that criticism, no, I take criticism and stride on. We got 1% out of the group. Props to them. I'd love to know what you're doing and the work you've done. So as you can see, though, a lot of people struggle with this. You're not alone in this. we all struggle with these voices and we all struggle with that RSD. So I know I had linked the quiz here, but if you got that email and taken the quiz, we're going to go over those 9 inner critics and talk a little bit about those loud voices in your head. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about what imposter syndrome and RSD even are. Imposter syndrome is that sneaky little voice, that whisper in your ear that's telling you you're a phony, you're not talented as everyone thinks, and that one day they'll discover your secret. This is that voice that's always, preventing you from going for that job, preventing you from going for the job that you're probably overqualified for because it's telling you that you're not good enough. You should be doing more. Um, and I think this is one that I love to tell people. It's like if you hear the word in your brain, I should do that, or I need to be doing that, or I'm not doing enough. Enough and should are those key words. If you're hearing your brain tell you that, those are kind of those indicators that, oop, that's my inner critic talking. That's imposter syndrome. That's not me thinking those beliefs. So that's something to keep an eye out. And the more you start picking up on that, you'll start hearing it often, more often and often. I have a client that's like, every time I say the word should, I immediately pause now. And she's like, I used to just let myself listen to it and follow that and just feel really guilty about it. But the more you practice, it's like a muscle. The more you practice working on this in your brain, the more likely you're going to be able to catch it quicker and quicker. And then rejection sensitivity dysphoria, also known as RSD, is an extreme emotional sensitivity and pain triggered by the perception that a person's been rejected or criticized by them, by important people in their life. So a boss, a manager, parent, a partner, anyone that gives you that feedback that makes you kind of feel that like, you've been rejected, you've been hurt, they don't think you're good enough, they don't think you're worthy, you don't feel loved by them. And with ADHD, emotional dysregulation is a big challenge for ADHD brains. So having that emotional dysregulation goes really hand in hand. And that's kind of where that RSD comes from, is that you struggle with that emotional dysregulation, and then you have this harsh feedback come in, or just feedback in general, and it feels like it's the end of the world. It feels like you've done the worst thing possible, when in reality, it's probably not that bad, but it just feels that way because our brain is telling us like, this is the end of the world, which is really hard to navigate. But again, over time, once you start to realize when you get feedback, really pausing and taking that time and having that conversation with the inner critic versus that imposter syndrome voice or the RSD voice will help navigate that. So how imposter syndrome and RSD make us feel: not good enough, betrayed, worthy, failure, anxious, confused, sensitive, emotionally dysregulated. I'm curious if there's any other emotions that I left off. If you want to drop them in the chat, feel free to drop which ones come up for you the most. I think for me, it's definitely just stressed. Isolated, that's a really good one. Lack of hope, stressed, confused, vulnerable. I love that. Overwhelmed, inadequate, alone, failure, stressed, different, defeated, unworthy, disconnected, exhausted. Yeah, it's these both imposter syndrome and RSD cause these really intense emotions that no one wants to feel these. No one wants to, feel those. Semi-suicidal, absolutely. Suicidal ideation definitely is very common when it comes to RSD. You feel like, it feels like it's the end of the world. The criticism can sometimes feel like the world is ending, and I just don't deserve to be here. Recently, actually, myself, I sent an email to my manager and this seems so silly, like an event reached out to us, or a person reached out to us for an event, and they had 40 people that they wanted. And we can't host 40 people. It's a small hotel, but I forwarded it to her and she said, hey, just moving forward, if it says 40 people, just know that we can't host this, and don't forward me emails like this, and just respond to them on your own. And I felt like the worst person. I was like, I can't believe I sent that to her. Oh my God. Like, why did I do that? Like, I should have known. We're a small hotel. We can't do that. But in reality, it's like, okay, it's not the end of the world. She didn't say she hated me or was firing me. It's like, no, she just said, next time, just don't send me these. And for me, though, it did feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I'm such an idiot. So, like, even small things like that in our day to day can really throw us off just emotionally. And no, you're definitely not the only one. So, those 9 different inner critic voices. So our brains are really cool. We all work so differently. Even the umbrella of neurodivergent is so wide that there's all these different inner critic voices. This is through the positive intelligence model. So this is the one I love the most because it's the most diverse. It has the most amount of variety. So these are the 9 different ones. So if you take the quiz, it will tell you which of these is the loudest for you. It gives them a rank. Um, but I'll go through these and you'll be able to probably tell which one is the loudest for you, or if not the loudest, which top 2 are the loudest for you. Typically, people can narrow it down to 2. So, controller. The controller is someone who needs to be in control. They feel anxious and impatient when they're unable to control situations or people. Typically, this person ends up being maybe a micromanager in situations. They become angry when others don't comply because, again, they lost that sense of control. They can't understand what's or foresee what's going to happen because they lost that sense of control. Struggle to admit when they're feeling hurt or rejected and achieves short term results, but may leave others feeling controlled, resentful, and anxious. Again, if you have that controller leading you and being that inner critic for you, it's really easy to fall into that kind of almost not, I would say that micromanager position where you're, wanting to control everyone's actions around you to make sure that everyone's doing exactly what's planned so that things don't feel hectic or feel chaotic. So it can leave other people around you feeling like they're being controlled by you or make them resentful or anxious. People pleaser. This is one that was one of my top 2. This is my second highest one when I went through my coaching program. So people pleaser, seeking affection, loves helping others, pleasing others, but loves to neglect their own needs, puts everyone before themselves. I like to say they see that self-care is selfish. That was like my motto. You worry about being selfish, can't put yourself first because then other people will judge you. And craving that constant approval, struggle to fulfill and express your needs because if you're spending so much time on focusing on how every single person is around you feeling, it's hard to really know how you're feeling because you're so wrapped up in how everyone else is around you. And this can lead to serious burnout and also make others dependent of you. I've noticed with myself and other clients, people that have that people pleaser in their top inner critic are the people that say yes to everything. They're yes men, yes women. And those type of people end up being the people that people go to because they know you're going to say yes. So the more you say yes, more people will rely on you. And then it ends up, that burnout cycle because people are like, oh, she's always going to say yes. He's always going to say yes. Of course, I'm going to go to him. So then when you start to put up those boundaries and start saying no, people are like, what do you mean you're saying no? No, like you can't. You're always saying yes. And that can be a really tough thing for a people pleaser to go through is setting those boundaries for the first time, especially in the workplace when you have been that go-to yes person. Avoider. I love the avoider. The avoider just likes to avoid things. They focus on the positive, avoids conflicts, difficult tasks, because if they ignore the problems, they maintain harmony. They fear that hurting others, suppressing anger, and sees conflict as unproductive and values being adaptable. The avoider likes to avoid, hard conversations and thinks that like if we avoid everything, then nothing will go wrong. And I think the biggest advice that I give avoiders, if you don't ask or you don't do anything, the answer is always no. So if, an avoider wants a promotion or is really frustrated with their boss because they haven't gotten a raise in a while, avoider clients of mine, typically their homework is to, have that tough conversation with a boss or a manager or a partner and have that conversation that they fear is going to bring up conflict that some of the times doesn't even actually bring up conflict. It actually results in a way more positive experience because they gain clarity, they gain understanding, and they understand how they're able to express their feelings to that other person so that they're both on the same page. So avoider, really the importance here is that if you don't ask, the answer is no. Restless. This is very common in the ADHD space because you're constantly seeking excitement and avoids being content and at peace. Easily distracted, juggles many tasks, prefers novelty over comfort, and quickly escapes unpleasant feelings. Just on the go, 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 trying to, move from one thing to another. Often dissatisfied with the present, impatient, but worried about missing out on exciting experience. That like fear of missing out, that FOMO, and believes life's too short to miss out on excitement. Restlessness can, be saying you're not doing enough. You need to be doing more. A lot of my restless clients struggle with burnout because they are constantly trying to do everything all at once. And a lot of the work we do together is really working with that restlessness, being like, okay, what's most important to you? What are your priorities? What are your values? What do you actually care about at the end of the day? And let's focus on channeling your energy to those things. What are the things that fill your cup versus drain you? Because a lot of the things, even that fear of missing out, can drive us to do things that don't actually bring us joy, that don't actually fill our cup, but we just do them because there's that fear of missing out. But it's, when you break it down, it's like, what are we actually missing out on? And before I go into this, everyone just doing a little check. Are these starting to resonate with people? Are you starting to figure out like which one sounds right? Oh, we got controller and restless here. 10 out of 10 restless. Definitely in the top 3. Yep. D, all of the above. And that's why I love when people take the quiz, because we all have all of these, which is great. We all have all of these inner critics in our voices. Some are just a little louder than others. I'd like to say some whisper to us and some scream to us. The next one's the stickler. Stickler, I like to also refer to as perfectionist. Punctual, methodical, really highly critical of themselves and others, and become irritable and tense. Sticklers usually struggle with patience with other people because they want people to be doing things their way. There's one way or the highway. Constantly frustrated and anxious about meeting ideal standards, occasional sarcasm and self-righteousness, sees perfectionism as a source of self-improvement, and insists that there's always a clear way of doing things. Sticklers, I've seen my stickler clients actually struggle the most with when it comes to like giving presentations or having calls with, managers that they need to prep for. They over prep and then they get to calls and they're flustered when one thing goes wrong because they're like, I didn't plan for that to go wrong. I planned for it to go this way and it went a different way. So sticklers really struggling with that, being flexible on their feet and being able to take changes and take things, that things aren't going to be perfect, that things are going to mess up, and that's okay. Failure is a good thing. You can learn a lot from failure. I had a coach actually give me the advice, fail fast and then learn from it. So with sticklers, it's really important to kind of give yourself some grace, give yourself some, or like release the pressure, release some of the pressure off of yourself, and know that like it's okay to make a mistake. No, nothing wrong's going to happen. Nothing bad's going to happen from this. If anything, you're going to learn from it, which is a great opportunity. Hyperachiever. This was my number one. Hyperachiever. This is also, it goes very hand in hand with people pleaser. I see a lot of common hyperachiever people pleasers because hyperachievers are workaholics. They're the people who are extremely focused on success. They're competitive, highly conscious of their image, trying to impress others. Self-worth is tied to success. Strive for excellence, prioritize efficiency, and believe emotions hinder success. For me, this showed up a lot with work. I was climbing that corporate ladder. I did not care how, I never told people how I felt, even though I was crying all the time after work because I was burnt out. I was like, no, I'm perfectly fine. I feel great. What do you want me to do next? What's next for me? What's next? And my goal, 3 years ago was to become a chief customer officer. I wanted to be a C-level suite person just for that title, because I thought, once I get that title, I'll feel good about myself. I'll feel important. I'll feel worthy, which now I can look at and say, that's so silly because I'm worthy as I am. I don't need to do all that work or have that fancy title to feel that way about myself. But it took a lot of work to really break down all those beliefs and those limiting beliefs that that hyperachiever had told me that I need to do those. I need to do this to be enough. I need to do this to be successful. I need to do this to um, feel good about myself. Hyper rational. So when it comes to hyper rationals, you're focused intently on rational thinking, often coming across as distant or arrogant, values rationality over emotions, criticize others for being irrational, and sees emotions as distraction. If you haven't picked up now, a lot of these, almost all of them, see emotions as distractions, which I think is really, it's a funny thing because you think as humans, like we have this ability to feel all these things. We can feel really intense sadness. We can feel really intense like happiness and joy. And that should be seen as a gift versus distractions in our life. We shouldn't see emotions as are connected to our productivity. They shouldn't be seen in the same boat. If you really think about it, they should be seen separately because emotions are meant to be felt. Hyperrationals see that self-worth is tied to knowledge and competence, and frustration with emotional people often feeling different and misunderstood. So hyperrational is really, making sure that everything is as they think it should be. Everything is there's a right way of doing everything. Everything has a certain way, and that self-worth is tied to that knowledge and competence. So making sure that you're always knowing things. You need to know the right answer. And if you don't know the right answer, it feels like everything's falling apart. It's not good. Hypervigilant. This one is basically for the anxious people in the room. Always anxious and worried about potential dangers, doubts self and others, overly sensitive to potential problems, often seeks reassurance from rules and authorities, fears making mistakes, and remains suspicious of others' motives, and seeks to know the rules, believes life is full of dangers and constant need to be on guard. This is that voice that's telling you, no, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. Like something bad's going to happen. Or, oh, if you say this, this is going to go bad. Or if you do this, nope, everything's going to fall apart. So really making sure that that hypervigilant voice is going to be the one that is telling you that you need to always be on guard. And if you're always on guard and you're always, anxious and feeling worried about what's going to happen or what's going to go wrong, it can get really exhausting. And a lot of my hypervigilant clients suffer from pretty severe burnout because they're always on edge about what could go wrong versus taking a deep breath and really thinking, well, what if things went right? What could happen if things go right? What would that look like? Because that other side is so loud saying of all the potential dangers, it's like thinking about what actually could go right. And lastly, we have the victim. Victim, one of my clients who is a victim calls it her woe is me energy because it's seeking attention and affection through emotional outbursts and focusing on those painful feelings, withdraws and sulks when criticized, gives up easily in tough situations, repressed anger, often leading to depression and fatigue, feels misunderstood, life is unfair, and wishes to be rescued and dwells on their negative emotions. Um, when you get stuck in that victim mentality, it's really easy to think that like it's the world's against me, everyone's out to get me, like I'm, all alone here, no one's here on my team, like it's just me on this remote island and everyone's just, isolating me. It feels that isolating. And this can come up actually a lot when it comes to RSD is that feeling of like I'm all alone here, no one's out, everyone's out to get me. I'm isolated here. What am I going to do? It's just me out here. So really being able to navigate that victim voice and even just acknowledge like, hey, that victim voice is talking, like, nope, let's pause and let's have a different conversation here. Like what's actually going on here? Like who is on my side? Well, it's like I have my own back. There are other people that support me out here. And really just navigating and talking back to that voice. So we have these 9 voices in our head. Some are louder, some are quieter. And how can we make these voices a little bit quieter? We give that voice a name. So we're going to go through a little activity about naming your top inner critic. If you haven't already, I'm going to give you a minute if you want to just grab a pen and paper, because we're going to go through a little activity where we're gonna do some journal free write. So for journal free write, I like to set a timer for, we'll do 2 minutes for each question. So I'll set a timer for 2 minutes. When I say go, pen to paper and just write whatever comes up. Just stream of consciousness, everything that's coming up. I'm going to show the question and then you'll begin your writing. But just want to give you some kind of ideas of what inner critics some of my clients have named theirs. So hyperachiever, that was mine. And I actually named it disgust from Inside Out. I haven't seen Inside Out 2, but I'm very excited. I'm going to see it this weekend. But disgust, never happy, never satisfied, always disgusted, never felt like anything was worthy. Never happy with my standards or work, never happy with my title, never happy with my pay, always wanted more, always disgusted with self. I have a client with hypervigilant, that anxious, always anxious. Marlin from Finding Nemo, he's always anxious about what's out there in the ocean. Like Nemo's, you're going to get hurt. You can't do that. Don't go on the sea. Like, don't do this. Always thinking something bad was happening, or going to happen until, having that experience of going across sea to save his son. Pleaser, Cinderella, classic people pleaser here. Can't say no, can't stand up for herself, always says, yes, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. And, hinders herself from her own success, her own potential to, go to the ball herself. And then controller, the last one being Regina George from Mean Girls. Regina being, controlling her clique. She's the leader of her little posse of what they call the plastics, controlling her mean girl clique and making sure that everyone wore certain things like on Wednesdays we wear pink, making sure that everyone was doing what she wanted to have that sense of control. So we're going to jump into the journaling. So I'll let everyone go get some paper and pen. And we'll begin. So what are the main qualities of your inner critic? And I'm going to start the timer now. Start getting ready to wrap up your final thoughts. All right. Would anyone like to share in the chat? What are the main qualities for your inner critic? Unwilling to be in discomfort. I feel that one. Failure will hurt the ones I love most. Scared of criticism. Acts like those internet ads always saying, try this One new weird trick, it will solve everything when it never does. I love that. Yep, mine has definitely told me that. Harsh, rude, dominant, sad, judgy, never enough, doubting everything I do, mean, anxious, never satisfied, protects me from harm, but it's mean, shy, timid. And actually, I want to call that out. It's mean, but protects me from harm. A lot of these inner critics, they come from, our past traumas, our experience, our childhoods, because they do start to believe like, okay, I need to do this to protect myself. Like I need to have control. I need to be that people pleaser to protect myself. And really kind of breaking down and figuring out kind of what are those limiting beliefs and what's actually true, and taking the time to navigate those really helps kind of break those down and understand where those came from. All right. The next one. What are the things, the AKA the lies, that your inner critic tells you the most? And Bo actually will launch a little timer so all of you can keep track if you want to keep track of the time yourself. And we'll start the 2 minutes now. A little timer right on the top of the Zoom if you need to keep track yourself. You can start to begin to wrap up your last thoughts. And when you're ready, feel free to drop in the chat any of the lies that your inner critic tells you. My way of thinking is the right way. I'm not good enough. Can't compete with other people who have been experiencing success throughout their life. You're too old. Ooh, age. Age is an interesting one. That's one that I actually struggled with a lot in corporate, because I thought, I need to, people aren't going to take me seriously because I am younger, or I'm not going to be able to get promoted to a manager role because I'm too young. And then when I left corporate, I now work for a manager who is 4 years younger than me, and she's one of the best managers I've ever had. So I think age is one that tricks us a lot, especially in the workplace, that of how are you too old for something or too young for something? Age is just a number. You already blew all your chances, nothing's left. I'm unqualified. If you slow down, change how you act, everything you earned will disappear. Ooh, that's a good one. My worth is dependent on my productivity. You'll never change. I'm a nuisance or a burden. Nobody actually cares about me. I'm bothering people. That's actually an interesting one. I want to actually quickly highlight that one too, is one of my clients struggled with that a lot when it came to like feeling like a burden to people, or feeling that like people were, giving her fake compliments all the time at work. She's like, I'm not doing good, but everyone keeps telling me I'm doing a good job. And something that we worked with her is that, do you give out fake compliments to people? Do you tell people they're doing a good job when they're not doing a good job? Do you ever tell someone like, hey, you're doing a good job when you're actually being like, no, they suck at their job? Chances are probably not. So thinking like, then why would other people be saying that to you? And the same goes for asking for help. When people ask you for help, it feels good. It feels good because you're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. This person wants my help. And you want to help them because helping people feels good. So when you help people, you get to feel good because they asked you, they think, yes, you're someone I can go to ask for help. So same goes for you. When you go to ask someone for help, like one, you're going to make them feel good for helping you, being able to be that person for you, but also it makes them feel good because they're able to give back to you. If you've helped them, they can now help you. Kind of gives that um, give and get kind of experience. It's funny, it annoys me when others won't believe you when they aren't a burden, but I do the same thing. 100%. Yeah, our brains are very silly. Quid pro quo. Awesome. Everyone's gonna laugh at me. Don't show you're weak. A lot of lies I see here. All right. Next question. What are the typical ways in which your inner critic influences your decision making or behavior? For this one, I'm only going to do a minute just to be conscious of time. And this one, you can think of those questions that we had earlier, not going for jobs or promotions. You can wrap up your last thought and drop those ways in which your inner critic influences your decision making and behavior in the chat. And something I actually noticed on the last question that I do want to call out too is I saw a lot of enough, or you're not good enough, you're not a good parent, you're not a good peer, you're not a good daughter, mother, father, all of those. If you ever start to hear that lie in your head, I want you to ask yourself, what does good enough look like? What does good look like to you? It's a hard question to think about because it's something that I don't think we have. There is no real definition of it. So it really comes up to you. Like, what does enough or what does good enough look like? Not applying for the jobs, analysis paralysis, not asking for help, can't take any risks, unmotivated to start creative projects that low-key excite me. And that's a really like if projects excite you, like you want to start those. That's tough when that inner critic's telling you, nope, you can't do that. Like make myself uncomfortable for other people's comfort. People won't believe me. Can't set boundaries with the people I love. A lot of ways it influences our behavior. So now comes the big one. What would you name your top inner critic? And for all the creative people in the room, I know I love this and I love when my clients show me draw what your inner critic looks like on paper. Obviously you can't share your drawings, but once you have that name, feel free to drop it in the chat. And this could be a name you make up. This can be a name that is of a character, like the ones I showed before. My only rule, your inner critic cannot be your own name. The grumpy grandpa, Eeyore, Karen, the judge, the boogeyman. Oh, these are great. Dennis the Menace. It's a monster with a clipboard. Psyduck. Oh, these are so good. Piglet. These are all ones that I haven't ever had a client name. Mr. Pants on Fire. Griselda. Sorry, the Griselda's out there. Angela Shroot. Mimine. Freddy Krueger. Oh, these are so good. Trash Panda. Officer. Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. Oh, I love all of these. These are awesome. So for these inner critics, now you have this identity. So you have this identity. You have these, we've Trash Panda. I'm going to use that one for example, because I love that. So now that you have this Trash Panda, this identity for this voice, you know what it tells you, you know those lies, you know what it's limiting you to do. Start having conversations with it. Start listening to it and saying, I'm not going to listen to you. That's not true. Tell it what is true. What actually is. When it says, you're not good enough, say, well, what does good enough look like? What is good look like? What, like, you can't go for that job. Well, actually, last week, my manager said I did a really good job for this and I should apply for that job, Start challenging those limiting beliefs. And I asked all my clients what can be possible when you have control over that dialogue in your brain. And these are some of the answers I got, less stress, more confidence. I had a client that said that we're promoted to a new job with more responsibility and way more pay. They stopped listening to the shoulds and followed their actual passions. This client actually went back, got laid off, and was like, I need to go back and find a job immediately. And then, because that's what she thought she should do, she actually took some time and went back to school for environmental and now has a really cool job in an environmental company. Pivot your whole career confidently. That's what I did. I completely pivoted from corporate to hospitality and coaching. And now I get to give great presentations like this on Fridays rather than sitting and writing emails. It couldn't be more better for my brain. Manage a layoff with more self-compassion, go back to school, unmask in the workplace, write a book, love your authentic self more, and be able to be more present. If you're able to, remove yourself from this voice, you're able to, yes, stop the shoulding on yourself. Stop shoulding. When you hear that word should, that's the inner critic. When you hear that you need enough, you need to listen to that voice and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Have that conversation. Like, is this true? And what proof do you have that actually makes it true? So we're at the end of our presentation. Bo, I'll let you share this and then we'll get into Q&A.
Okay, gorgeous. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, this is obviously one that resonates with a lot of us. So really appreciate your advice, Sam. Yeah, before we transition, just wanted to, for any of y'all who don't have Tiimo Learn yet, we have a 50% off thing right now for all our courses and all that good stuff. We actually just literally a couple of hours ago launched a course on becoming friends with your inner critic. So maybe, perfect segue. Maybe you should go and take that course. You can use the QR code here. We're also going to share it in an email. But yeah, if you want 50% off either on iOS or Android, just follow the instructions. And yeah, please, if you want to ask a question, slap it into the Q&A now, and then we will dive right into that immediately. So the first question for you, Sam, is how do you, okay, one second. It is, okay. Certainly with procrastination such, that inner voice must be right some of the time. How do you both manage perception and be realistic with some accuracy?
Yeah, I think that activity that we just went through when it comes to what your inner critic is saying, I love when my clients just journal it all out, just info dump it, set a timer. Maybe it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes, however long you need, and just write everything that it's telling you. And then go through it once that timer goes off and say, which one's true? Is this true? Do I have proof that this is true? If, I'm not qualified for this job is one that it's telling you, or I need to, practice this presentation 6 more times. It's like, well, why 6? What's telling you that number? Maybe it's just one more time. Maybe it is just, 2 more times. Last time you did it, you nailed it out of the park. Maybe you don't need to practice at all. Maybe you just need to review the slides the night before. So it's really taking those thoughts and making sure that they're true, because you're right. There are some of these voices that are there to protect us. They are telling us the truth, but it's navigating which ones aren't, because there are a lot of filter. If you don't filter through it, there's a lot of crap that's going to come in.
Yes. And actually, before we answer any more questions, as folks trickle out, Sam, do you want to share your little coaching offer?
Yes. So, for those who don't have any questions and you're bouncing, and you want to dive deeper into this, this is what I like to call is like phase 1 of my coaching program. Phase 2 is really talking about that leader within. And this is all covered in my coaching program. So it is a 12-session program. So there's 6 one-on-one coaching sessions, as well as 6 group coaching sessions where you'll be with other clients of mine. Basically what I like to say, a fun little accountability group to help kind of guide you through the program. And if you have attended this call, I have a special offer. So if you sign up for my program by July 30th, you'll get 2 additional one-on-one coaching sessions added to your program. You can scan that QR code, or you can book a call with me on my website. Message me on my Instagram, or just shoot me an email. Any of the following, or LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn there. Reach out to me in any way possible, and yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
And we'll make sure to include your contact info in the follow-up email as well. Adele just asked, do you only work with ADHDers or autistic folks / others as well?
No, I work with anyone. Actually, when I first started coaching, I wasn't even diagnosed with ADHD myself. I actually only recently got diagnosed about, oh God, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And that's when I actually went through ADHD Works, ADHD coaching training. So I only recently, a little over a year ago, started coaching ADHD. So I can coach. If you don't have ADHD, I can still coach you.
Amazing. All right, cool. And before we get back into the Q&A, just if anyone ever has any ideas for future sessions you want to see with Sam or with other experts, you can always shoot me an email. I'll slap that into the chat right now. We make these sessions free and accessible to everyone, and it's really, really important to us that folks like you at home have access to these resources. So if you have anyone you want to see or any topic that Sam can cover, please let us know and we'll make it happen. On to the Q&A. I saw this one in the chat. How is the avoider different from the people pleaser?
Oh, so they're similar. They are very similar. And I think people who have avoider very high sometimes have people pleaser very high. Voider, think of it more as they're avoiding having conversations with people. They're avoiding, like, they'd rather do nothing and stay out of everything just to like keep the peace. Whereas the people pleaser wants to be the person who's doing everything and saying yes to everyone to control that everyone's emotion. So the people pleaser is actually doing all the actions to kind of keep the peace, where the avoider is like, nope, I'm just gonna avoid everything and just take a step back and let everyone else handle it to keep the peace.
Then what is the difference between autistic traits and stickler traits?
Wait, well, I didn't hear you. What was the?
What is the difference between autistic and stickler traits?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me go back to the stickler side. So when it comes to stickler, I would say it's more of a perfectionism. It's that need of control because it needs to be a certain way. So I'd say, yeah, I would say it can be like a stickler can be anyone. Like it can be someone who is neurotypical or neurodivergent, but a stickler really being that person that needs things to be a certain way. Like I have a client of mine who is a stickler, and before working with me, she would practice her presentations for 3 hours the day before a presentation just to make sure that every single thing was perfect. And then she'd have the call and be like, I messed up this one word and I can't believe I did this, and beat herself up about it and just go down a spiral of like just self-deprecating her whole self because she messed up one thing, even though she practiced. And then the next time would be like, I need to practice for 4 hours. So it's really, it can impact anyone. So I think that it doesn't really matter whether you're neurodivergent or not. A stickler can be anyone.
And just to add to that a little bit, when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, and those traits show up so differently for everybody. So like stickler is really those traits, and they can be anyone. And then autistic folks can really look any which way, right? So yeah. Next question. My critique has asked me to mask for so long. I'm not even sure what I'm masking. Where can I start to learn who I am underneath my unhealthy coping mechanisms? Ah, such a good
Ooh,
question.
such a good question. Oh my God. Um, oh, I love this so much because I feel like I can relate so much to that because when I was in corporate, I literally was this workaholic. My whole identity was work. Someone asked me what I like to do for fun, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, I work. Like, what do you mean fun? I'm an adult. I work. That is my job. And slowly by like learning, who my inner critic was, I started to get really into like astrology and human design and like any way I could learn a little bit more about myself through even like personality quizzes. Like it seems silly, but like learning about who I was through those started to help me understand like actually who I was, like who I am at my core. And now like I feel like I'm able to now show up a little bit more as that identity because I'm like, oh wait, I know who I am. Another great activity, which is done through my coaching program, is a values exercise. So understanding what your core values are, like what actually matters to you, having those two core values and not having, core value being like financial stability or, having a good job title. It's like, no, what really matters? And for me, it's growth and impact. I love learning new things. It's important for me to be in a job where I'm constantly learning new things. And for me, I need to be having an impact, doing presentations like this, making sure that, people know and learn about these inner critics so that they can be better humans themselves. So knowing your values, taking little personality quizzes, human design, astrology, all of those, like even this is a perfect way to start to like really chuck away at that mask and slowly start to show up as that version of yourself. But it takes time. It does not happen overnight and it's not easy. So I give anyone lots of credit and give yourself grace and patience and just be kind to yourself because it's tough. It's really tough.
One thing that's also really helped me is being in community with other people who are doing the unmasking at the same time, because then we can like be in that messy process together. And it is so helpful to
100%.
just see like other people like work through that as well. But yeah, okay, next question. How do you recognize when it is your inner critic talking and it might not be helpful, but you cannot recognize it in the moment?
That's a good question. I think the you're not going to catch your inner critic all the time. You're not. There's sometimes where your inner critic's going to win and you can't catch it all. You can't be the person who, if you're doing that, you're not going to be able to be present. But I think it's over time, it will get easier. And I think this isn't something to, end your day and like ruminate over everything that went wrong and everything your inner critic said. But I think you can start to reflect. Maybe it's journaling, writing down at the end of the day, like, what are 3 things that went really well today? What are 3 things that I'm grateful for? This is an activity that a lot of my clients find a lot of success in because they start to realize, like, oh, these are things that went well. My inner critic was actually telling me, like, these are the things that didn't go well to me today, but I actually had a really good day. So it's like starting to like maybe end your day with a journaling process of just like writing down things that happen throughout the day so that over time you start to catch it earlier and earlier because you're not going to just be able to catch it right off the bat. And also I think that should, listening for that word should, I think that is the biggest one that you'll be able to start catching earlier and earlier.
And then the next one, after silencing the inner critic's lies, how can you create / foster the courage to do the thing your inner critic doesn't believe you can do? Yes.
Do it. Just do it. Do it scared. Do it scared because I I know this is gonna sound super cheesy. Life's really short. And if you don't do it, you're gonna regret it. So do the things you want to do in life. And even if your inner critic's telling you not, prove it wrong. Because guess what? You probably can do it. You're probably overqualified. You probably can. I think what is it? Do it and do it scared.
Yes. Okay. And then how do you reconcile negative feedback you've actually gotten, maybe in a traumatic work experience, when it emboldens your inner critic?
Oh, that's good. I think for me, it's there's two things. I think one is I think it's really, really important whenever you start a job, or even if you're in a job, touching base with your manager and talking about the way you best work. I've been lucky the last 3 jobs I've had managers that have all started. When I first started, they asked me, like, how do you work best? How can I best support you? And I've been completely transparent with them, being like, I don't really do well when you just put on my calendar like quick meeting or quick sync. Like, can you give me an agenda? Can you give me some sort of information? Because, I was laid off that way. And it's almost traumatizing and brings it up that I'm like, oh my God, I could be getting laid off, even though things are going great. I'm doing a great job, but I still think that way. So if being really clear of what your needs are and what you need from your manager of like support or your support needs, is a really good way to get that clarity. But also I think what's important is, being, and I lost my train of thought. I would just say really being like really clear and concise of like what your needs are and the support that you're best looking for.
And then the last question here is, what is the word for that horrible, itchy feeling you get when your restless inner critic kicks off hard? And they want to Google it, but don't even know the words to like describe it. It's like worms in your body.
Oh, I don't even know what that word is. Um, One thing that actually I found a lot helpful is like when you're like super restless, this sounds silly. Stand up and just shake everything out. I have a yoga teacher. I do beach yoga with her every Saturday on the beach. And literally she has us like run around and like shake on the beach. And like there are people on the beach. We look crazy, but like at the end of the day, no one really cares. Nothing really matters. And it is the most relieving feeling because like all of that restless energy just like immediately leaves my body and I can finally like do a yoga class in peace. And she started doing this actually in her studio classes too. And it's like, oh my God, all that energy just releases. We hold so much of it in our bodies that like just shaking it all out, like physically shake it out, like stand up, like literally shake it out, dance it out, put on a song and like get it out of your body and then, take a deep breath and then see how you feel. Because it really is. A lot of that restlessness is just built up energy in our bodies that needs to be expressed.
And that was actually all of the questions. So thank you all so much for joining us. Sam is going to have more sessions with us. Hopefully she'll have us. And yeah, again, if you have any sessions you'd like to see in the future, please do let us know. I am the one who curates all our little community events and all that. So it is really helpful for me to always hear what the community actually wants. On that note, we have some yoga sessions coming up over the next couple weeks. So there's one actually tomorrow. It's going to be at noon New York time. That is 6 p.m. Central Europe time. So I really encourage you to join. You can find all of that information in the app or just on our Luma page. Those events are free forever. So you're always welcome to join. And yeah, Sam, any last parting words from you?
Oh, listen to the shoulds and tell them no. And I want everyone who's, still on this call, I think, to really ask yourself, like, what enough is. What is good enough? What is enough? What does success look like to you, not anyone else? Because those are the biggest 3 that I see people really struggle with when it comes to those inner critics. And if you can have a strong definition of those, if your inner critic says, hey, you're not enough, it's like, well, what does enough look like? And if you can define that and you're doing that, then you're all set. So I would say that those are my parting words.
Gorgeous parting words. Amazing. And just so y'all know, I'm going to send out a recording probably just first thing Monday morning, and the slides, all that information, all the ways that you can access Sam, you can access Tiimo. Yeah, all that is going to be in your inbox. So take a look out for that. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Have a gorgeous weekend. If it is your weekend, if you're working, have a gorgeous work time. And thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.